Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mark. How are you today?
Very well. Bit chilly.
Bit chilly, but yes, well, here we are in the middle of June, and I know this podcast will go out probably in July or thereabouts.
Yep.
And it was a record overnight temperature I saw.
It was warm.
Yeah, it was. It was warm. And are you getting any sleep? Are you watching the soccer?
I watched a couple of games of soccer. I've been watching it early in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm British by birth, so I watched England play. So that was a good win.
I thought of you when I was watching that. Yeah.
And obviously the Aussies did a great job, so that was good. And then last night I watched Fremantle beat Geelong, so it sort of wrapped up the whole weekend.
Oh, yeah, that was frustrating watching that last night. Anyway, we can't complain because the Cats are still up there on the top of the ladder.
Yeah, they're doing very well.
You've got to hand it to Fremantle. They are playing really well.
Yeah. And what's your take on business sentiment at the moment, Bill?
It's not good.
It's not good, is it?
There's too much confusion. There's mixed messages everywhere. I was in Colac again on Monday. I went and saw our friend Joe.
At the Treasure Hunter?
At the Treasure Hunter. And he's my gauge on how retail's going down there. And you and I were talking about some businesses we know before this podcast. And, yeah, it's subdued. And my personal opinion is going to stay this way for a while. It's survival mode for a lot of smaller businesses.
Yep.
And you've just got to batten down but don't stop promoting your business.
Yeah.
Right? You keep promoting it. Be seen, be read, be heard. So, Mark, into our podcast, who are we interviewing today?
So today I'm very pleased, after a bit of chasing, to have Maree Rayner from Harvest Recruitment. Hello, Maree.
Hello, Mark. Hi, Bill. How
good
are
morning,
you?
Maree. Yeah, good.
So Maree and I have touched base numerous times over the years, with Maree actually appointing at least 2 CEOs at organisation. Was that Barmer Community Legal Service and the Chamber? Maree, I think, were the two?
Yep, that's correct. And both of those incumbents have gone onwards and upwards, which is great to see.
Which is great, which is fantastic. So, Maree...
And sorry, Mark, but Maree is the principal at Harvest Recruitment.
She is.
That's right,
That's
which
exactly
is a well-known HR company in our region.
Very well known.
Yeah.
So, Maree, start always is, where was primary school?
So I'm a born, bred, raised Geelong person. I went to primary school at Newtown Primary, one of our key primary schools in the region. And, I have some fantastic memories of going to primary school there, some great friendships and those that I've reacquainted with because I did leave Geelong for a number of years and returned. But, Newtown was the primary school.
And high school?
I'm a Matthew Flinders girl.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I went to Matthew Flinders Girls High and there was reasons for that. My father, Hayden Shell, was the Member of Parliament back in the day for the Labor seat of Geelong. So that's Christine Cousins' seat right now.
Yep.
And back in the day, if you were the daughter, son of a Labor parliamentarian, you went to a public school. It has changed markedly since my teenage years. So, we drove a Ford car and we went to public high school.
Were you in the Swing Sisters at the band for Matthew Flynn?
Look, I've got good karaoke car voice. I would not say that I would ever be in that creativity area. But, the Swing Sisters, amazing little group that have stemmed from Matthew Flinders.
Yeah, well, Matthew Flinders has a great reputation in Geelong for that and Belmont High are the two schools we keep hearing about all the time in our interviews, isn't it, Mark?
Great schools, great schools. So while you were at high school, Maree, did you have any aspirations about what you wanted to do?
So when I was at high school, I think it was around year 7, we actually had to do as one of our English, I think it was in English, that we had to do our life story, that classic do your life story as a presentation and an assessment task. And you know what I was in my life story in year 7?
No.
I was a lawyer. So that was my, I guess, early days of where I thought I might head in my career journey. And I wrote this whole life story of me being a lawyer. And I think my husband would probably say my argumentative skills are quite good. And I've got a lot of evidence that I do bring to the table. But that was probably my earliest thought of what I could be. I am in professional services now, so I guess, not too far removed.
And did you have any jobs while you were at high school?
Well, I started as a paper girl when I was 12.
That's a first. We've had plenty of paper boys, but no paper girls.
So, and correct, I was the only paper girl. I started doing my paper round in Newtown, interestingly, and I used to ride around the streets of Geelong on my Malvern Star bike with my fruit box on the back and delivered papers to the Newtown and surrounding suburbs.
Well, you had a few hills there, Maree, didn't you?
I know. I was put through my paces. Yeah. I worked for Purdy's news agency, which was a very well-known news agency in Geelong. And if you are sitting at Geelong Cellar Door, at the front window, looking up that little side street, you can actually still see the newspaper. Branding. It's like the back of Anytime Fitness in Geelong. So there you are.
That's very cool. So you finished high school. Where did you head off to?
So straight after high school, and whilst I loved my dad, I was a very frustrated teen because I wanted to forge my own identity, and that's very hard when you're the daughter of a politician. Yep. So I fled Geelong and I went to Melbourne University and I did a science degree.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And what did you think you were going to use that for?
Well, I was a very good STEM student. So I loved mathematics. I loved particularly anything analytical. So the analytical side of maths, I was extremely good at. But I fell into science, and the conversation that I had with careers teachers at the time is do science, it'll open your world, be this STEM student, be this poster girl in tech. And as I was doing my science degree, I started to feel that I was either going to go into laboratory, research, or teaching. And I didn't want to do either or any of those three areas. So I was really quite stuck towards the end of the science degree. And so I had done in year 11 accounting, and I was extremely good at that. Again, another analytical subject, commercial subject. So towards the end of my science degree, we were heading into the recession that we had to have, Bob Hawke, Paul Keating. And the best advice that was coming was study. And I was like, well, I'm coming out into the workforce, not a good time to do so. So I actually enrolled in another undergraduate degree, got a lot of exceptions, which was great, having done the science degree. But I ended up enrolling with the David Syme School of Business with Monash University and did their business management degree. So that was probably where I started to really get my groove because it was in more of the subject areas that I was interested in. And I was probably interested in from high school, but probably channeled in a path that wasn't necessarily for me.
That's an interesting comment, Maree, because we've had a couple of people we've interviewed who went to university and say that the first day there, or enrolment, they were standing there and they were in a queue for one subject and they thought, I'm not sure I want to do this, and changed lines and went into a queue for another course and ended up doing that instead of what they thought they were going to do. But in the end, you found a way.
You find a way,
Yeah, and I really loved the business degree. I just found that resonated with me. And as I look back at my marks of those units that I studied, I was highest marks in human resources, and look where I am.
So I've got to ask you, no interest in politics?
Oh, good question, Mark.
Or did your dad
Because
frighten you off?
I'm actually in a role that sees me connecting with a lot of individuals, a
Yep.
lot of the community, and I'm actually passionate about our region. I returned to Geelong in 2009. I'd been away since I went to uni, so that was a little while, and I'm passionate about the region, but I probably have a different lens. I want to see the region be the best it can be, but probably from a economic and people development perspective. And
Yep.
that's probably where I lean into more the business community.
Okay.
And yes, my dad did scare me off. And also to Bill's points at the start of today around we're in a pretty confused state, like the state of Victoria. And I probably wouldn't want to be in politics right now.
That's right. And it's a bit like our podcast, Maree. We've got to be very careful, and we don't talk politics. Even though Mark and I might be on opposite sides of the fence. But it's not worth it. You know, we're all in this together. And you're quite right. Geelong is suffering just like everybody else is suffering. And it's about where we're going to go in the future. And I think that, as I made a point before, that we've just got to bide our time, and we've got a couple of elections over the next 2 or 3 years, and let's just sit back and wait and see what happens.
That's right. That's right.
So your first real job?
So after my paper run days, I did a lot of part-time work actually during my studies. So I worked in retail during high school, and I worked in hospitality when I was at university in Melbourne. And I first thought I wanted to go into hospitality management because I really loved it. The pay wasn't so good though. So I knew that if I was to follow the hospitality route, I'd probably have to pursue ownership. So own a restaurant, own a cafe, own a bar. And I wasn't really inclined to do that. So after my business degree, and again, this is a bit of a learning about how careers start. They don't start in a linear form. One of my regular customers at the restaurant I was working at when I was studying my business degree was a quality consultant. And at that stage, the ISO standards were just getting underway, and, you know, they were the way to differentiate your business, your service. And now it's just par for the course that your companies have ISO certification, whether it be quality, whether it be safety, whether it be environmental, and there's, of course, product standards as well. So there was a senior consultant who said, I've got more clients and I need someone to assist me. And lo and behold, I said, look, I'm studying total quality management as part of my business degree. And he said, come and join me. So that was my start. I was a quality consultant. I was his scribe to start with. And then I went into businesses themselves and I helped them develop their policy manuals, their procedures, and their work instructions for certification to the ISO standards. I also was a lead quality auditor in my time. So that was my start. And
what's interesting of that, Maree, it shows you, in a silly way, the importance of networking. Like, he could have spoken to you in the restaurant, and you could have just been quite yes, no, and moved on, but you engaged in a conversation, and look where it led. That's amazing.
Exactly. Right. So he was a consultant, and he was he had his own clients, but he was contracted as a subcontractor through a major recruitment firm at the time called Morgan & Banks. So we got on some contracts with that company.
That's amazing.
So what was the tipping point to actually make a start in HR as a sole occupation?
So good lead in, Bill, because as I said, we were contracting through said recruitment firm, and I had been consulting to companies from manufacturers to transport companies to laboratories, and standing up their full quality system. So it meant I got under the hood of a lot of different companies around their organisation charts, their structures, who does what in what roles. And so that company went on a massive recruitment drive to find their next recruitment consultants. And I think they just did the look around the grounds and they saw the work I was doing as a contractor, and they invited me to go into their process to be considered as a recruitment consultant in the technical and operations team. So they were very siloed in their recruitment areas. And because I was a scientist by qualification and I'd been in sort of that general industrial area developing procedures and knowing a lot about different roles and what those roles did, I was offered a position to join the technical and operations team in Melbourne, working as a recruitment consultant for, Morgan and Banks, Jeff Morgan and Andrew Banks. And people would know Andrew Banks because he was one of the first Shark Tank judges.
That's right.
So, so he was very entrepreneurial and grew a major business. They were very smart business entrepreneurs, Jeff Morgan and Andrew Banks. They sold Morgan and Banks and made it quite a significant earnings, and then they bought it back for a song and made significant earnings again. So it was very interesting to be part of that journey in my earlier career.
Now, Maree, I want to bring you up to, back to Geelong at this stage.
Well, hold on, before you do, what took you to Hong Kong then, Maree?
Yes, I went to, so Morgan and Banks got purchased by a global company called Monster.com, and that was its second iteration. And they went from being probably Australasia or Australia, New Zealand, but they had Asia already, Morgan and Banks did, to a global company. And Monster.com is probably America's version of our Seek.com. And so they were an advertising agency. They had their version of the the yellow pages, and the start of like advertising platforms and job boards. So they didn't have a recruitment agency though. They didn't know what recruitment was. So they started to, with the acquisition of Morgan and Banks, put people into different parts of the globe. So it was almost like learning, taking what was a great business and a great methodology to the globe. So we had people in London, in Europe, and I moved to Hong Kong. Was part of the Hong Kong team. Interestingly, just after the planes crashed into the World Trade Center. So Hong Kong was going from boom to bust in a heartbeat. Because, of course, the Hong Kong dollar was directly pegged to the US. And it was a real challenging time, actually, in Hong Kong. But it was a great experience as well for me.
Did you like it? Do you love living there?
I loved it. I'm a little bit of a city slicker. Even when I head back to Melbourne now, I'm like, I love the just the vibe. It's just this melting pot of it's crowded. It's sometimes really polluted. They call them hazy days when you get all the pollution down from China. But it was a fantastic environment. I was able to embed myself with the local Cantonese community, which I loved. I really got a great understanding of their values. Like sometimes you go, that their hobbies are shopping. It's like, how can you have a hobby that's shopping? But then they also have their parents and grandparents living in their tiny apartments. So they've got this really strong family values that, perhaps, I brought back with me to Australia. So I did love that. And of course, you're now approaching global playing. So I was working with some global companies. I recruited, then I moved into trade and property as my two segments. And my first role that I recruited was the procurement director for Nike.
Okay.
And I was like, job done. But it was exciting to be like, you're doing really high order work with global companies. And that was really exciting as well.
So, I understand that over the years, Maree, reading through your profile, that you've earned your stripes, so to speak, in HR and done all the hard yards. But I think about 16 years ago it was that you decided to come back to Geelong. So what was the catalyst for that, and how did you get started?
So the reason I left was the reason I returned. So how about that? So I left Geelong, wanted to forge my own identity, which I did. And then in 2008, my dad fell ill, and I was thinking, okay, my sister at the time was overseas, and I was in Perth with a young family. So I'd had one child overseas in Hong Kong and two in Perth. I came back to Perth. So I did Melbourne, Perth, Hong Kong, Perth, and I was in Perth with three young children, 5 and under. And my dad fell ill in 2008, and there was really no family supports for him, and it was just the right time for me to come back. I, was at that time in my career that I was, able to be flexible to move back home, and just came back. And with a brooding young family, I was working. I'd actually gone from big to boutique in Perth, and it was the start of potentially forging my way into my own business. So when I returned to Geelong, I did work for this Perth business for a period, this boutique in Perth, but they had it was a gas crisis in Western Australia, and that had a mini economic issue in just Western Australia only. And so they had a little bit of a, downward sort of like downturn in their economy. And so it wasn't appropriate that I continued on with Perth. So I was sitting there with my, probably, 6-month-old daughter. And I was like, well, what's next? And I'm like, well, there's never a better time to perhaps give this a go than to start my own. Having said that, what were we in 2009? GFC.
Yep.
And so when I started my business, people were like, oh, that's a bold move, recruitment company. But I thought, look, I started in Hong Kong in its crisis, and I stayed there for 3 years. And so I thought, well, if I can do it and I've done it, I can do it again. So I just started this little tiny recruitment business called Harvest out of the Shed, with a probably 9-month-old in tow. And it was something that I thought would work nicely around family and still keep engaged in business, which I like to do as well.
Have you ever read the book by Susan Jeffers called Feel the Fear But Do It Anyway?
Yeah, I know.
Was there an element of that?
I think I've always been tuned into career. I actually, and my family thought I wouldn't have children. So the fact that I had 3, I think I shocked them all. And so it was always probably there in the background. And interestingly, Bill, I had my first child in Hong Kong. Do you know what maternity leave looks like in Hong Kong?
Probably 4 hours, was it?
Yeah, a little bit like that. So you have 10 weeks leave. And so I had 2 weeks before the birth, 8 weeks after, and you come back full time. You get a nanny, you come back full time. So that, and then when I had my second child, he was a textbook baby, and I went on maternity leave, and I said, don't call me, I'll call you. And they called me when he was about 4 or 5 months old going, we've got something. And I was like, well, I'm kind of managing here. I can do the odd assignment or two. So I went back to work again. So I think it was just in my DNA to sort of look at the next thing, and I was ready. I was ready to just dabble a little bit and, provide a little bit more income into the family, like dimension. And I started up Harvest. So, yeah.
All right, Maree, in today's environment, 2026, what are the biggest challenges for HR consultants or professionals such as yours?
In what sort of year dimension, Bill?
Well, as a business owner and a business person, and in HR, what are the biggest challenges you think that you face in today's environment? Environment.
I think it's being able to ride the waves of highs and lows. Business growth, oh my gosh, it's, you can have the best strategy, the best business plan, and you can be foiled by the economy. It's completely out of your control. And I think I've learnt that, I wish I could say once in my business journey, but I've learnt it and I continue learning it in my business journey. So when we started Harvest, we started on the back of Perth because that's where my clients were. And we got to 2013 and everything was humming. Perth was going well. Geelong was growing. And then Perth had its commodity crisis and it went through the floor. And Harvest as a business almost toppled over the cliff with it. And we had to almost get rid of the things that were like going to take us down and under, which was our Perth business. We had to cut the ties and we didn't do it fast enough. And I think that's when you're particularly small business and boutique business, you've got to make tough decisions pretty quickly. Yeah. And I'm pretty like nurturing and optimistic. And I think I tell myself, no, it's just a glitch. And before you know it, you could be tumbling over that precipice, down the cliff yourself to like you can't come back from it. So I think as a business owner, learning to adapt and change and you have your highs where you go, oh, and you never say, if I could bottle this moment, because as soon as you say that, something's going to change. But you've got to be prepared to be like looking at the horizon and making changes objectively and having people in your world that can see that horizon as well, because sometimes you get clouded by your own glasses and they could be rose-coloured glasses. And so you might need some clarity along the way. And actually Mark's been one of my mentors over the years to just give that voice of reason to say, this is what it looks like, and you have to make some decisions.
Yeah, so, my glasses at the moment, Maree, is... in fact, one's got a lens in it and the other one fell out. So I think that's where I am.
So Maree, talk to us about Harvest. What do you offer? Because you've been doing some HR round tables. You've been sitting on a couple of boards. But tell us about Harvest. If people listening want to get in touch with you, what do you do?
Yeah. So Harvest, ever since the get-go, has been a white-collar recruitment agency, and that's permanent and contract, and it goes right up to board placement, to CEO placement, as Mark has mentioned, C-suite, specialists. And that's usually any role that could sit within a corporate services team are areas that we specialise in. But of course, we started on our technical backing. So anything white-collar technical, engineers, operations managers, construction managers, project managers, of course, that's our strong suit. So that's our core asset. And as you said, we're doing HR roundtables. So we expanded and changed and diversified over the years. And it was our Perth challenge some 13 years ago, 14 years ago, that taught us don't have all your eggs in one basket. And so we diversified to have a careers offering, and we were able to offer careers and outplacement services to Alcoa workers that were impacted by the Alcoa closure. And so we've got that as a business offering. And now it's usually around a little bit of restructures, and there might be a person in a new structure that doesn't fit with a new structure. So we do still provide outplacement support and career coaching services. But our HR piece came on the back of someone in my HR network said, you should do this roundtable. And I said no. I said, no, we're a recruitment agency. We're not into HR. And they said, no, you are Harvest Human Resources. That's actually our name as listed as an ABN, ACN. So that's our Australian company registration is Harvest Human Resources. And they said, yes, you can do the HR roundtable. You are Harvest Human Resources and you will bring an audience. And so I said no the first year. And then in 2016, on a wing and a prayer, we launched the Geelong HR Roundtable. And we had no real strategy nor direction, but we just uplifted it and people came. And then 2018, we got smarter about it. We started to survey the region on economic, employment and HR trends. And on the back of HR trends, we then had some really key topics that we brought that were of interest to our HR community. So our roundtables went from 15 around a table to now we gain around 50 in a room. And on the back of that, we've got HR experts, which we call our HR Nexus partners, that deliver really specialist HR support. Now, whether that's strategic workforce planning, leadership programs, we've got consultants currently that are working in psychosocial safety, but more from a professional development perspective than a compliance perspective. And we do mediations and investigations. So that's a broad remit of HR. So we had to rebrand, and I heard you introduce me as Harvest Recruitment because that's what we've been known as. But we're now Harvest Talent Recruitment and People Solutions because we've got that whole people part to what we do. If this is airing in July, I'd say if you're always interested in the jobs that we have, go to hr.com.au job seekers because the roles that we have now will likely be placed. But we've got some really great opportunities, and we're really proud of the region's businesses coming to us knowing that we've got deep talent pools. They've been going since 2011. We've got the same database since 2011. We've got over 25,000 active and passive candidates on our database, and I think it goes more than 40,000, including our archive candidates. So that's a lot of talent that you can tap into.
So how do people find you, Maree? What's the website?
So it's harvesthr.com.au. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm still working on it because I'm going through a personal name rebrand, and some of you would go, Maree Rayner. But I am, if you do search Maree Rayner on LinkedIn, you will find me.
You. Beautiful. So, Maree, a long journey from delivering a few papers in Newtown to running your own business successfully in Geelong. So well done. Great chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there's lots of opportunities because as you... well, the three of us know Geelong is growing and will continue to grow, and who knows where it'll end up in the future. But in the short term, we've got to hang in there because there is light at the end of the tunnel.
And I also would put a positive spin on that, Bill, because I know, you sort of have those feelings of those other, remember Geelong was in its 20-year drought?
Yep.
And it almost was... Geelong was not only suffering, physically, by our weather conditions, but it was almost like a 20-year city drought. Like, we did not move almost as a city for 20 years. And then the drought broke, and then it kind of started getting really good, like momentum. And you can see there is those signs in Geelong. Like, I'm looking at this weekend, and, depending on when the listeners listen to this podcast, we've got things happening that never happened in Geelong. We've got winter activations.
Yep.
We've got the Botanic Gardens Bloom Festival. Like, the gardens are going to be lit up, on display, showcased. It's an exciting time, and that attracts people. It attracts business. It attracts investment. And we are seeing that, and we're going to see a new transformation of the region. I'm looking at Moorabool Street now getting painted. And yes, it's got its naysayers, but it attracts people, and people will come, and people will feel like there's a vibrancy in our region, and you make these things like come to fruition. And I have to respect what the mayor of the city is doing, because he's agitating, and I love it, because it gets us on the map, and we are moving, and we're moving forward.
So thank you, Maree. Good luck in the future, and we'll chat soon.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks,
Maree.
Mark. Thanks,
Good.
Bill.
Okay.
Have a lovely day.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.
Bye.